My top tip for all podcasters is to make sure that the name of your show isn't the number one reason why your ideal listeners cannot find you. I know that many of you have been thinking about making a change and rebranding your show to leverage the awesome power of organic discoverability. So I created a simple new program to help you out. I call it the Podcast Reboot Program. This is my step by step course that I created to help you rename, rebrand, and relaunch your podcast. Through December 1st, 2024, you can use the code POD, P-O-D, to save $100 on the course and bring the price down to just $197. I've also set up 3 live bonus workshops for anyone that uses the code POD, P-O-D, by December 1st. This is a great chance to rebrand your show and get some live help from me so that you can optimize everything you're learning inside the course. Use the link in the show notes or head on over to www.podcastingbusiness.school/reboot and use the code POD, P-O-D, to save $100 and get access to the bonus live trainings by December 1st. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam. You're listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. If you are a coach, consultant, or service provider looking to learn how to leverage your podcast to build your online business and get more clients, you're in the right place. Today, we're doing a podcast audit with my pod pal, Rosemary, from the Thriving on Purpose podcast. Rosemary, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Adam.
I'm excited. We are going to dive in, I think, on some growth strategies for sure, maybe some client acquisition stuff. You've got a nice business platform built out from what I've seen, what I've looked at, lead magnets, offers, things like that.
Thank
Let's
you.
set a goal. I like to kind of have something to work towards. So let's say you and I are talking again 6 months from today, and everything has gone
Mhm.
really, really well with your show, with your business. Things are, as you want them to be. Paint that picture for me. What would a really ideal next 6 months of progress with your show and with your online business look like for you?
Definitely more downloads, but also being able to track that people who listen to my podcast, well, first of all, they find out about my podcast and that I'm able to convert them into clients, whether they download a freebie or something, but I'm really able to attract and convert leads through my podcast. That would be really amazing.
Okay, yeah. And I feel like the ideal listener for my show, like you definitely represent that. You have an online business, you're trying to grow your show, but that show growth is a part of the overall marketing funnel of attracting clients and let
Hmm.
like you said, seeing them march from, ooh, I found this podcast, ooh, I love this podcast, ooh, I downloaded this freebie, oh, I really want to work with this person, it seems like a great fit. And having that trail of touch points, it's really nice to see. And we can definitely get you that. This is exactly what I do every day for my own show and for my clients and stuff like that. So I've got lots of ideas for you, Rosemary. That's the good
Please.
news. Maybe the good news and the bad news. Sometimes like, wow, so many ideas. Where do I even start? Okay, so that's our goal. What do you feel like as far as attracting ideal listener, growing with your audience with ideal listeners? What do you feel like is the main roadblock that we need to address today? If you can kind of pinpoint it at all.
I think the roadblock is, or maybe what I'm struggling with is knowing if the topics that I'm talking about are about what my ideal clients wants to learn about, wants to hear about. If my podcasting style speaks to them in a way that makes them want to get to know me and also obviously go through the funnel. So I have difficulty in figuring that out, maybe because I'm not really great at finding where the data is or reading that data. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay, perfect. So what I really want to focus on here with our time today is a two-part strategy. The first part is how do we attract more of your ideal listeners and get them in front of your content organically? And then
Hmm.
once they are plugged in and they hit that follow or subscribe button, they're listening to episodes, how are we positioning you as the go-to expert person with your content that your ideal listeners love at the same time? So we want both those things. We want them to love the content, but also show you off as the person that they really eventually want to work with. Does that sound good?
Yeah, perfect.
That's what we want. Okay. So let's start on that first one, the client attraction, because you can't have a funnel with no people in the funnel. That's the thing. So many podcasters are like, well, I've got all these great lead magnets and offers, and like nobody's buying my thing. And I'm like, well, how many people are listening to your show? And like, well, I get about 15 downloads per episode. I'm like, we're asking a lot from a small amount of people. We need hundreds of people. That's a nice number to get to. It doesn't take thousands, I don't think. 80% of podcasts do less than 1,000 downloads per episode. So there's plenty of people out there getting clients, making money with less than 1,000 downloads. Are right about that. It's very doable number. The key, in my opinion, for you is looking at what I call organic discoverability. So how are we organically pulling people in without paying? No, so I'm not talking about paid ads and things like that. How are we organically bringing people in with our keywords? And
Mm-hmm.
the thing I want to start on first is the name of the show, because that's the most
Right.
powerful SEOs, discoverability, search engine tool that we have is the name of the show. So when we look at the name, Thriving on Purpose, what we're going to basically, there's 3 questions that I ask anybody that does a podcast audit, people that I'm doing rebrand work with that hire me, things like that. I go, okay, I want 3 check boxes to happen when we come up with a name. The first check box is I want to know exactly what it's about. The second
Right.
check box is I want to know exactly who it's for. And the third check box, I want at least 2 searchable keywords that your ideal listener is putting into Apple or Spotify in the search bar. So, for example, my show is called Podcasting Business School. We know what that's about. We know who it's for. And podcasting and business are 2 really highly searchable search terms. And that's why I show up. If you put podcasting or podcasting tips anywhere on any podcast player, I'm probably the first show that's going to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the name of the show, there's some different opportunities here. One would be a
Mm-hmm.
complete rebrand where we go, let's restart the whole thing and optimize it. Some people are like, that's not a great fit because I have my whole brand is called this thing, and it's my book name, and it's my URL, and it's my Instagram handle. And I still would say you still should probably consider, rebranding it. If you want people to listen to the show, this is a really powerful tool. But sometimes I get pushback. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. So with that circumstance, we'll add what I call a title extension. So it'd be Thriving on Purpose, um, entrepreneurship strategies for solopreneurs, moms, and like 3 kind of descriptors. So which camp do you feel like you're kind of sitting in on that? Would you prefer to keep Thriving on Purpose as the main overall title? Or are you open to a complete rebrand? How do you feel about that?
I'm actually open to a complete rebrand because I've had the thoughts about it. I think what I know now versus what I knew then, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have called my show Thriving on Purpose. First of all, because I found out someone else has a show called like that. That's one thing. And secondly, because of everything you just said. By just hearing the name, the person can't really tell what the show is about, a little bit, but not really who it's for, and it's not very specific. So I am definitely open to that, even though the word thriving is something that I use a lot in my branding and in my work, but I'm open to a rebrand because I know I could use that word differently.
Yeah. Yeah. If we think about it, the word thriving, the word on, and the word purpose, is anyone really, is anyone going on Spotify and putting the word thrive or thriving on there?
Right.
Probably not. They're probably putting in a
Mm-hmm.
search term about the area that they want to thrive. So they want to thrive
Mm-hmm.
in their relationships. They want to thrive in their investments. They want to thrive with their health. They're searching relationships, investments, and health, not thriving. Does that make sense?
Completely.
Okay. So this is very exciting to me. You're on board with a rebrand potentially, and we can kind of dive into this a little bit. So the first step of the rebrand is we want to look at keywords of like, again, the areas that you help your listeners thrive. What are those kind of name brand areas? And let's look at some of those keywords and go, maybe we can build a title out of a few of these so that, again, we know what the show's about. who it's for, and we get a couple of keywords in there. So like describe the ideal avatar listener for your show that you would love to just fill up your audience with.
Yeah, so definitely solopreneurs who have an online business or service-based business. I work primarily with female entrepreneurs, so female solopreneurs or online service providers. That would definitely be it. Could be mothers as well. So I work a lot with on the topic of work-life harmony. So it's really balancing the lifestyle and work, and most of the time that touches women, but not exclusively. But for me, I would say women. So those are some of the keywords there.
Okay. Okay. So I'm loving this. Hot button keywords that I want you to file away. Solopreneur/solopreneurship, great keyword. Um, online business, great keyword phrase. I want both those things, not just business, online business. I want that whole phrase in there. And then you've got your identifier, moms, women, females, whatever fits. You don't need to have all of those on there because they all kind of mean the same thing, but that's the identifying term. When I ask the question, who is this for? That's who it's for. So if it's like,
Right.
if the name of the show is like Solopreneurship Strategies for Female Online Business Owners, something like that.
Mm.
And now the first reaction I always get, that's a lot of words, Adam. Yes, it is.
Indeed.
And they're
That's
and
a
they're all
mouthful.
and they're all keywords. Now,
Mm.
so let's just use that as an example. Not committing. We're not putting a ring on the finger. We're not marrying this name at all. But let's say that's where we go. Solopreneurship strategies or tips or whatever. So I like the word strategy. Solopreneurship strategies for female online business owners. And that is a mouthful. But in your intro, you can be like, welcome to Solopreneurship Strategies. If you are a female with an online business, this is the place for you. Boom. So you don't have to say it
Mm.
exactly as that. Like the verbal name is Solopreneurship Strategies, and then you call out who exactly it's for. So there's kind of like what I did in the intro of this show. I'm like, if you are a coach, consultant, service provider looking to leverage a podcast to build an online business and get more clients, this is the show for you. But all those words, Podcasting Business School is the name of my show. That's the brand. But I have a title extension also. And here's like something that a lot of people don't realize. I change it about once a quarter. I do different things in there. But all those words that I use in my intro, those are the words that I put. It's kind of like fishing lines in the water. And I'm just going, let's fish over here a little bit. Let's fish over here. Let's see what happens. Let's see where we get a spike in downloads, different keyword pools we can pull from. And I'm always changing that up. So it is lengthy, but that's just an example of like the general template I like is I want the very first word to be a keyword. That's important. And we don't want to have the word the in front of it because the first word has a lot of power. So the whole name on the title line has the most power out of anything as far as organic discoverability SEO goes. But the first word of the podcast name is extra powerful. So we want to make sure that is the real term that we want to show up for. So, for example, my show, Podcasting Business School, I could verbally call it the Podcasting Business School, and I could have the website, thepodcastingbusiness.school, but it's not. But I could have that, but still in the title line, I'm taking the word the off of there because this has been told me directly from Rob at Libsyn. He's like, do not have a number as the first word in your title. Don't have the word the, because nobody, that's just going to get, you're just wasting a great search engine opportunity here. So maybe you decide that online business or entrepreneurship is the primary keyword that you want to focus on. So then we flip that to the front of the title and go online business strategies for female solopreneurs. So it's same jumble of words, but we're just putting them in different order depending on what you want to focus on. So yeah, that's where you need to start is looking at those keywords. Let's get a couple in that name. But I like the template is biggest keyword, and then usually tips or strategies. So like online business tips or strategies for keyword, and keyword, or keyword and identifying term like female, women, mom, things like that. And so they look at it and they
Yeah.
go, they're searching solopreneurship, but they're like, and there's a ton of solopreneurship shows, and you want to show up alongside those solopreneurship shows. But when they see the art and it says for stay-at-home moms or for female online business owners, like, I'm a female online business owner. And then when you're lumped into all these cutely named podcasts that are like the solopreneur dudes or whatever, and it's like, all right. And then I see a name that's like solopreneurship strategies for female online business owners. That's like very specific, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I go, that's me. I'm not a dude. I'm a this. And so their finger is hovering on their iPhone or their Google Pixel or whatever they've got, and they're trying. You know, we want to win that finger hovering game, and we want them to click on our art and not someone else's, because they're probably not going to click on the second one if they like what they see there. So we want first dibs.
All right.
So that's kind of the strategy that we want to take. Any questions on that so far?
No, so far that's clear.
Okay, so this is really going to help. Like, I was just getting off a coaching call with one of my clients that we rearranged her podcast title like this, and she saw 400% download growth in 7 days. And she's like, I mean, it's just insane, the power of just the words in the title, especially when you go from having 0 keywords to using the full 3-step formula. It is powerful. So I wouldn't be surprised if I get that email from my new pod pal, Rosemary, and she's like, Adam, I did this thing that you said, and I doubled my downloads the first month. This is great. So I'll be looking forward to that testimonial. So now you're filling up your audience bucket with ideal listeners, people that are those solopreneurs, those stay-at-home moms that run online businesses that are looking to learn entrepreneurship strategies. They're coming in and listening to your show. The next leg of the process, that second phase, is how do we position you, Rosemary, as the expert that they want to work with? So tell me a little bit about your content now. Are we doing interviews? Are we doing some solo episodes? Like, when you put out episodes, what does that look like right now?
Yeah, so I used to do like one solo, one interview, but I spoke recently with a friend of mine who's also like a podcast coach, and she was saying that if you want to position yourself as an expert, you want to reduce the interviews and have more of you, which I have done more. So now I'm doing more of a, let's say I do a weekly episode, so 3 of me and 1 interview where I sprinkle it here and there. So that is how I'm structuring it now.
Perfect. And I call that my 2/3 content rule. So I've been preaching this strategy for a few years now, where we want you positioned as the expert in 2/3 of your content. So you're hitting that number nicely there. One thing that I would recommend is what we're doing here. These coaching style episodes, I think you could be very effective with that when you're very locked in on a specific niche, like I am, and you are. A great situation is pulling somebody that represents that niche or listens to your show onto your show and kind of showing off what you do. Like, everything that we're talking about, people pay me thousands of dollars for podcast rebranding that I just gave you. You know, that, like, I'm showing that off and going, this is what I can do. This is what is possible. And you doing the same thing. You bring a female entrepreneur that's just getting started with their online business, and you're like, all right, what's your main pain point that you want to focus on the next 30 minutes? And they go, well, I don't have an email list. I really need to figure out how to get my email list going and build my first lead magnet. Like, cool. That's the one thing we're going to focus on. I'm going to help you map out your framework for building your lead magnet, or whatever that one single step is. And you show that off inside of what I'll call a coaching style episode like this, and then air that. And the more of those that you air, what starts to happen, and I was just talking with a client about this too. I found it once I got about 25 of these podcast audit episodes in my RSS feed, in my podcast feed, the conversion rate of the people that started showing up for these that became clients just skyrocketed. So it's kind of hard to get them going at first, because people aren't sure exactly what this is and why are you asking me to come on your show? I'm not a podcaster. I'm not a podcast guest. But you start to do these and people hear the episodes like, ooh, I want to sign up for that. This seems really cool. and the flywheel starts to turn. And then when you have about 20 to 25 of these in your podcast feed, what'll happen is people will hear all of those and start signing up because they heard a bunch of those and they've heard you coach over and over and over again. And this person is primed and ready to be your next client, and
I love
allows
that.
people, yeah. And it's just like a natural funnel. And even the people that don't sign up for podcast audits with me that have listened to dozens of these, and they do a discovery call and they're primed to do business with
Mm-hmm.
me because
Mm-hmm.
I'm the person that's they're positioned in their mind when the time is right for them. And they're like, I want to get more clients with my podcast. And they just see me helping people and helping people and helping people. Why in the world would they go to some? It's not like they're going to be like, I need to go out and find someone else other than Adam to go do
Right.
this. Like, it doesn't make any sense because they've heard me.
Mm-hmm.
I've done, I think 250 podcast episodes now, plus. And so there's so many examples, but I think you could thrive in this type of an environment. It's great content. It still fits the expert position. It's like the ultimate in expert positioning because it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of social proof built in at the same time.
Right.
And there's a potential client sitting in that seat. Like, this isn't a sales call that we're doing here. This is
Mm-hmm.
legit live coaching. But I do have a lot of people that, after we're done, they follow up. Maybe it's that day, or maybe it's 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road. They're like, hey, you know, this is Adam. We did a coaching episode, a few months ago. We had talked about some things, but I'm ready to get started. What do you suggest? Let's do a discovery call or whatever. And some
Yeah.
people, like right afterwards, like, let's get started. This was great. Let's just get started. And I'm like, that's always
Mm-hmm.
awesome. But that's not the expectation. It just starts to happen once you start producing this type of content. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to pump my brakes right there. What questions do you have if you were to start doing these types of episodes? What would be your first couple of questions, like, of how to do these types of episodes?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that I really, really love that idea. When I saw your post on Threads originally, I thought, and then when I realized what it was for, like the details, like this is so smart. I should be doing this too. I thought, oh wow, the reason why I thought it was so smart because the resistance from me, a potential client, is less than oh, book a clarity call or book a discovery call. Most people are like, oh, it's going to be a sales, if they're not sure of what they
Right,
want.
right, right.
But here, it's not, even though obviously before you come onto the call, you know what it is about. You're going to get an audit from someone who knows their stuff. So if you need their service, is the only next logical step if you vibe together. So I really love that. So thank you so much. Questions? Yes, in terms of format, because we're talking about the type of content. So right now I have content about I sharing strategies and tips. Let's say one that I just recorded and edited is about how to deal with overwhelm as female entrepreneurs. And so I'm sharing it's a big deal. A lot of people struggle with it. Why do we struggle with it? What you can do about it? Okay, that type of content. And I have interviews here and there, and then I may have case studies where I have clients that come on and share their transformation, how it worked, how was it for them to get coached by me. What frequency would you suggest I do such an audit, in terms of the type of content that I share? I don't know if my question makes sense.
No, this is the perfect question. And I'm glad that you asked it. This is the exact right question that you should be asking. The cadence. How does this fit into the
Hmm.
routine?
Right.
So I would recommend starting like you do 3 solos and 1 interview. So maybe every other week it goes solo, coaching, solo, interview. So kind of a back and
Okay.
forth, or you just add it into the mix once a month. But here's what I realized. I'll put it this way. I started doing this and I started to see the power of having some of these people started to say, hey, I want to hire you. I was like, oh, wow, this has never happened before. I need to do more of these. So then I started recording 2 of them and make it 2 in 1 episode. So 2 30 minutes, a 1-hour episode. And then the more, what I found out, the more of these types of episodes I had, the better my client conversion results were. So then I added a second weekly episode. So now I release solo episodes on Tuesdays, coaching episodes every single Friday. And so I just started
Right.
adding because I'm like, it's totally worth it because this is the best content as far as client conversion that I have. for both
Mhm.
listeners and for people that participate in the coaching session. So that was the progression I naturally made. And again, that the binge podcast listener factor is important to consider, where you go, all right, now I've got 10 or 20 of these, and people have been exposed to all of these before doing the coaching session. The likelihood of that person signing up is much greater than the person that is recommended by a friend, or, you know, finds you on social media or whatever, and outside of listening to the podcast resource. So
Mhm.
what most people find are like, I need to get more of these out. So there's different strategies you could. I have some clients that do like a coaching episode week where they'll release like 5 of them in 5 days, just to get kind of a bolus of that content out there. And maybe they do that once a month for the first few months to get 15 to 20. That way, people in the future are binge listening. They're going backwards through all those episodes, and it wasn't like a 1 week thing. So there's different techniques, but I
Right.
think the more that you get out there, the better. Now, one other idea that I definitely want to make sure that I cover with you is, if you're like, yes, I'm gonna start doing these. Like, so you just talked about how you have some content about overwhelm and dealing with overwhelm. Now, I believe you also have some paid solutions based off of overwhelm. Like, you got different memberships and things like that, where somebody is struggling with overwhelm in their business, you have a paid resource or solution that they could pay you for. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So finding your first few people, I think it's important, where you are going to do a reach out on Threads. Threads would be a great platform where you post on Threads and go, listen, I am a podcaster. I am looking to connect with a female entrepreneur that is feeling very overwhelmed right now, to bring you onto my show for a 25-minute blah 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 coaching episode. We're going to come up with a great name for it, the an overwhelmed breakthrough episode, or like we could just strategically name it, whatever. And then you start pulling that ideal person in. Like, I want to make sure that you have a paid solution on the back end of this thing, to if they're like, oh my gosh, this was so great, how do we keep working together? I don't want you to be the person going, well, right now I don't really have anything. So I was that guy. I was that guy. I talked about the first ever time I spoke at Podfest. I had a line of people that wanted to talk to me and begging to buy things from me, and I didn't have anything to sell them. And I was like the biggest
Mm.
idiot in the room. I was like, oh my God, this is so stupid. I didn't have anything to sell these people. So now I'm always ready. Anytime I create content, whatever focus point you have, you can switch it up. So maybe down the road, you're like, online business 101. If you are somebody that's just getting started with your online business, this is your post on Threads. I want to bring 5 people on for a online business Kickstarter episode. You get to shout out your website, kind of give them the motivation, like, oh, I'm going to get some publicity out of this. This is going to be great. And then you've got that back end solution to where maybe you go, if it makes sense, we could talk about this. I've got this program, today with our episode, you kind of had the appetizer. If you were interested in working together, this is what I'd like you to take a look at. Maybe you have a little sweet deal for them and go, hey, use the promo code, whatever, Adam, to get $50 off, or a bonus session or something like that. That works pretty darn well in my opinion. So we want
Yeah.
to kind of connect the dots, but don't just call it a coaching episode. We want to have a strategic name, like mine's a podcast audit. And don't do a general, hey, who wants to come on my show for free coaching? You're going to get too many tire kickers, too many people that will no show you, to put it plainly.
Mm-hmm.
So you go, hey, I've got 5 spots for a online business overwhelm solutions chat, or whatever you call it. Uh, Message me. I'll DM you the link. First 5 people to sign up get the spots. You're going to get to shout out your brand on my website or on my podcast if you would like to. Some people don't want to, and that's okay. And then they're going to get your best stuff. They're going to get live coaching for free. And I always put in there, like, it's not a sales call and blah, blah, blah. That way you kind of create that safe space. And you're a great example, because I put a post up on Threads of a similar vein, and you're like, hey, you totally responded. You DM me on Instagram, I'm like, love to have you. Here you go. Let's get you on the show. So yeah, any thoughts or questions about that process?
No, I love that, and I'm glad you said don't be general. and that I can tailor it to specific needs that I have a solution for, so that I can flip it, like I can switch it around once in a while so it doesn't feel like it's always the same thing. I think for me, it's going to be important because I get bored easily.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
also for the listeners, I guess it's like, oh, today she's focusing on that pain point, like systems and operations, let's say. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And thinking about a name, a strategic name for it too, indeed, to not attract, tire kickers and time
Yeah.
wasters.
Yeah. And it's kind of a two-level approach where I always call these podcast audits, but when I do my call to action on social media, I will say I'm looking for 5 people that are struggling with, processes and procedures or sales solutions or whatever. I don't have to change the name to a sales solution audit. It's still a podcast audit.
Hmm.
I'm looking to bring that person on, just like you said. That way we can spice up the content. Or if I have a new program I'm launching that I know these
Right.
people who say yes to this would be a great fit for, but also the content would kind of perk up the earbuds and of the people like, ooh, I like the topic of this, and the people who like the topic of this are gonna love the thing that I'm launching. And maybe you do an intro and outro with, hey, you listen to this episode today. Rosemary came on and I gave her a discount code. I'm gonna give that to you guys too. So hit the code Rosemary and you're gonna get $100 off this new thing I'm launching or whatever. Yeah,
Hmm.
all that ties together nicely, and you'll see yourself making sales.
I'm excited. Can't wait to get
Yes,
started.
you should be. You should be. Okay. So I want to make sure we save some time to let you shout out your brand, your website, where people can catch you on Threads. So if people want to find out a little bit more about you and kind of follow along in your podcasting adventures, where should they go?
Currently on Thriving on Purpose, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Very soon the name will be changed. And my website is rosemary.dede. So that's just my name, rosemarydede.com. And everywhere else, that's where I go by. So on Threads, it's just rosemary.dede, and Instagram as well.
And Rosemary's last name is Dede. That way you can find her easily
Yeah,
on Threads. Give
for
her a follow on
sure.
Threads, my new favorite social media platform. All right. So for everybody that's listening in, if you would like to come on the show and do a podcast audit, I still have a few spots open for the fourth quarter of 2024, and we're booking into the first quarter of 2025. Hop on the calendar. Just go to my main website, podcastingbusiness.school. Click on the freebie button, and you'll see the podcast audit and the freebie resources there. And you can come on the show just like my new pod pal, Rosemary, here. And with that, pod pals, I'm going to send you out to the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I will see you on the next episode. Listen up, pod pals. This is important. The name of your podcast will either be the number one reason why your ideal listeners find you or the number one reason why they cannot find you. If you're ready to leverage the awesome power of organic discoverability and make it easy for your ideal listeners to find your show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, then it's time to rebrand and relaunch your podcast with my brand new Podcast Reboot course. This online course provides my simple step-by-step system to help you rename, rebrand, and relaunch your podcast so that your ideal listeners start finding you week after week. Through December 1st, 2024, you can use the code POD, P-O-D, to save $100 and bring the course price down to just $197. And you're going to get access to my 3 bonus live trainings where I'm going to help coach you through the process and answer your questions live. To get started, use the link in the show notes or head on over to www.podcastingbusiness.school/reboot and use the code POD, P-O-D, by December 1st, 2024 to save $100 and get the bonus live trainings.